The Boys is back for Season 4. Now normally, we'd have started our seasonal coverage with some complete history videos, and we do have some of those coming, but keep in mind, most of the new soups this season are original creations with no comic history, so we thought it would be more fun instead to review the comic characters that inspired the soups within this world. A lot of these are directly confirmed by the series writer Garth Ennis and showrunner Eric Kripke, but if they aren't, we did our best to make educated guesses on who may have inspired the character. We're not going to do every single soup in the show, but we will do most of the significant ones, their powers and abilities, and if they have one, their fictional backstory created by Vought or the backstory we know for them. If there's somebody you think we missed that deserves shine, hit us up in the comments. Additionally, I'm not going to cover every member of the Boys either, only 2 of them, because within the show they don't have any powers like they do in the comics, and even within the comics they basically have a generic power set. Now, strap in because this is the comic inspiration for every major soup in The Boys. Let's start out with the Seven, the world's most powerful superhero team. Obviously a direct homage to the Justice League, the group is basically inspired by, I guess, any significant superhero team throughout comic book history, so let's start with the current members in the show as of right now in Season 4. Homelander is first and the true villain of the show, an obvious homage to Superman including the backstory. Homelander, or John, was marketed as an alien who crash landed on Earth but was raised as an all-American boy. Despite that, the real Homelander was raised in a lab where he developed multiple serious personality issues like sociopathy and psychopathy. John also aged rapidly and went on to become the planet's most popular superhero, complete with super strength, invulnerability, flight, and heat vision. Homelander takes everything Superman stands for and filters it through the lens of toxic nationalism, extreme capitalism, and rampant xenophobia. Where Superman is what humanity aspires to be, Homelander is more like a warning of what we should avoid. Homelander is the face of the Boys franchise and truly one of the most terrifying soups in the show. Next up we have Black Noir, who's kinda hard to pin down. He doesn't have a clear fictional backstory, and that is part of his appeal. While showrunners and Ennis have stated that he's directly inspired by Batman in appearance and hand-to-hand combat mastery, being a soup though, he probably falls closer in line with somebody like Deathstroke, who actually has enhanced abilities. His appearance in the show, as well as being mute, is definitely inspired by Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe, who was canonically shot in the throat by Zartan, which made the Ninja Warrior mute. Similarly, Black Noir's major appeal is the fact that he is silent and lethal, and a master of hand-to-hand combat, when in reality he's just kind of in that costume because he was horribly disfigured and rendered mute by Soldier Boy in the 1980s. The Deep is an obvious Aquaman parody. The Deep mostly serves as comic relief, similar to how Aquaman was made fun of for decades by comic readers. Just like Aquaman, the Deep does have some really cool abilities in that he can communicate with and influence aquatic life, breathe underwater with gills, and survive the crushing depths of the ocean. His fictional backstory is even similar to Aquaman's in that he's the Lord of the Seven Seas, but one thing to consider here is that, honestly, most of the sea life actually likes the Deep and consider him to be like a friend. I think more often than not, you can actually see that the Deep too would prefer to spend his time with them in company over humans. Thankfully, they didn't go with his comic appearance, which would have been the worst thing ever. A-Train is your by-the-book speedster, inspired by the Flash, Quicksilver, or any other super fast runner. A-Train is fast, but he lacks the backbone needed for general heroism. A-Train's actual backstory mirrors his fictional one in that he grew up poor and lived in poverty amid chaos and gang violence. Vought, of course, took liberties with that to make him appeal more aspirational, including his superhero name, which comes from the A8th Avenue Express train in Harlem in New York City. A-Train is said to need to ingest nearly 30,000 calories or more in order to maintain his speed on a daily basis, but it also helps that he has a history of abusing Compound V to amplify his speed. Now there are other speedsters within the Boys universe like Shockwave, A-Train's rival, and a former member of the Seven named Mr. Marathon who we never see, but A-Train is the most dominant speedster in this universe. Next up, we have Sister Sage, who according to showrunner Eric Kripke is directly inspired by Lex Luthor and Ozymandias. She does not have any superhuman abilities outside of superintelligence, but that doesn't make her any less deadly. She's the smartest person in the world, and when asked by Homelander to help him effectively take over, she jumps at the chance to manipulate humanity, which she views as lesser creatures. Ultimately, it's too soon to tell much about her backstory or long-term plans, but once they're revealed, feel free to post them in the comment section because that'll help with the YouTube SEO. Another new soup introduced this season is Firecracker, and Firecracker's abilities seem to be inspired by Jubilee from the X-Men, but her personality is basically a combination of every extremist grifter online. As of right now, we don't know what her PR backstory she has from VOD is within the show, but she was a former child beauty pageant contestant in the same scene as Starlight. Her entire motivation is to destroy Starlight, who ruthlessly bullied her as a child, even making up and spreading heinous rumors about her. That being said, she's basically a superpowered version of the most annoying people you run into on Twitter and losers who make 20-minute videos about how woke stuff is. Now let's clean up this coverage with a couple other former members of the Seven. First up is Lamplighter, who is, at first glance, appears to be a hero similar to Green Lantern or Green Arrow in appearance, but in reality his powers are much more reminiscent of Pyro. Pyro being the mutant arsonist member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants from Marvel Comics. Lamplighter is a demoted member of the Seven who was manipulated by former leader of the Boys, Grace Mallory, into spying on the Seven. However, he eventually killed her grandchildren, was outed as a spy, which got him kicked out of the group. With pyrokinetic abilities that allows him to control fire, all Lamplighter needs is essentially an ember. He used to carry a giant flaming lamppost, but after his demotion, he simply carries a more inconspicuous flip lighter. Starlight is next, and her powers are a direct reflection of two characters combined. Dazzler, who can use heat and light to create concussive blasts, and Electro, who can absorb electricity and manipulate it. However, Starlight's appearance is more reflective of Golden Age youthful heroines like Mary Marvel. Annie January's fictional backstory is similar to the blue-collar people she represents, a good old-fashioned girl from Middle America chosen by God to become a hero, until Annie finds out that essentially everything about her that's special came from a test tube and she decides to fight back. Queen Maeve is your Wonder Woman clone. She's super strong, super fast, and super durable. Her fictional biography is that she's the queen of the underworld, when in reality she was really just the first graduate of the Godolphin University School of Crime Fighting. Even Maeve's costume is almost a direct copy of the big screen look of Wonder Woman. Maeve at her height was considered to be the second most powerful member of the Seven behind Homelander. However, multiple soups that are more powerful than her have appeared since that point. Translucent is interesting because, like Sister Sage, he doesn't exist within the comics and was created as a replacement for the comic character Jack from Jupiter, a fake alien/sexual deviant. Translucent is directly inspired by Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, but he can't make other items invisible, just his skin, so he's often running around nude. He does have the ability to make his skin ultra durable, similar to Emma Frost's Diamond form or even fellow Fantastic Four member The Thing. However, if you want my opinion, Translucent is far more accurately a parody of H.G. Wells' The Invisible Man, who uses his abilities to wreak havoc on others and pursue his own desires, much like basically every character in the show. Lastly, for 7 members, we have Stormfront, and Stormfront is kind of a unique character. Her power set is inspired directly by Thor, with a fun little Nazi spin on the whole thing, and by fun I mean horrifying. She was married to the inventor of Compound V, Frederick Vought, who gave her the first successful dose of Compound V all the way back during World War II. She then lived an abnormally long life where she continued her Nazi scumbag fascist views. Stormfront wields incredible electrical capabilities, including the ability to summon and blast lightning out of her hands. She also has super strength, super speed, and incredible durability. Many people would have considered her to be the strongest soup in the world before Homelander existed. Next up, we have all the members of the superhero team Payback, the world's second greatest superhero team and directly inspired by the Avengers. First up is the founding member of Payback, Soldier Boy, and he is America's first superhero and Homelander's childhood hero and actual biological father. His backstory created by Vought is that Soldier Boy grew up in the birthplace of American liberty, born on the poor, mean streets of South Philadelphia. He learned the values of hard work, tenacity, and bravery, and he used those values to prove America's exceptionalism to the world. Soldier Boy is a direct homage to Captain America. However, Soldier Boy more accurately reflects a post-War II sense of American nationalism. He's incredibly strong, fast, durable, and within the show's universe, he can spontaneously combust, similar to characters like Human Torch, Firestar, or Red Hulk. Next up, we have Soldier Boy's girlfriend, the Crimson Countess, who is directly inspired by the Scarlet Witch. Even the name is almost identical. In addition to super strength and speed, she also has the ability to produce giant fireballs of varying intensities, similar to, a dozen heroes. However, one unique aspect of this is that she has to use her hands to produce the fireballs, and she has to do a specific gesture. If she can't do that, she's effectively useless. Next up, we have Gunpowder, who's basically like, what if the Punisher and Deadshot were merged into one character? Gunpowder first teamed up with Payback as Soldier Boy's sidekick in the 1980s, but requested to quit after months or years of abuse by Soldier Boy. Gunpowder has superhuman marksmanship, strength, and durability. He's been compared to Judge Dredd by some, but I don't really think that applies. Tommy and Tessa, the TNT twins, are directly inspired by the Wonder Twins, classic heroes that first debuted in Hanna-Barbera's The All-New Super Friends Hour. The Wonder Twins activate their powers by touching fists and saying Wonder Twin powers activate. Much like them, Tommy and Tessa can generate blasts of energy when they are in direct contact with each other. They also have general superhuman strength and durability. They also happen to regularly host the most diabolical yearly gathering of superheroes, Herogasm. Swatto. Based off another Avengers hero, Wasp, Swatto is an insect-based hero. His powers of flight are similar to Wasp's, complete with enhanced strength and durability. However, in terms of durability, he is not durable enough to tank a rocket blast to the face, which is how he died in the 80s. Mindstorm is another supe from Payback and is able to perform a wide variety of telekinetic and telepathic abilities. Not much is known about his backstory outside of the fact that he helped betray Soldier Boy to the Russians after suffering significant abuse by him. At first I wanted to say that Mindstorm was close to characters like Charles Xavier and Jean Grey because they're all telepaths. He more accurately reminds me of Legion. Now, Legion in the comics suffers from dissociative identity disorder, which Mindstorm does not. He suffers from bipolar disorder, and those two things are not necessarily the same or even really in the same wheelhouse, but they are both telepathic heroes that, when combined with a significant mental illness, cause erratic results in their powers and behaviors. Now, Teenage Kicks is another superhero team that is used as a premier feeder program for the main two superhero teams, and it was primarily inspired by the Teen Titans. Now, most of the members of Teenage Kicks that we see in the show are already in teams like Payback or The Seven, so I'm only going to cover two new members. First up, we have Mesmer, played by Haley Joel Osment, who's a telepathic hero inspired directly by Charles Xavier. His name is even Charles in the show, and similarly, neither have any true hand-to-hand fighting skills. Mesmer can read minds and protect himself with telekinetic and telepathic abilities, but not much in a fight. Now, the other member of the Teenage Kicks that we meet in the show is actually Popclaw, who might remind you of Wolverine or even X-23, but according to the boys' writer and co-creator Garth Ennis, he intended for her to be an imitation of Scandal Savage from DC Comics. I really don't know much about Scandal, but I know that she is Vandal Savage's daughter. They do look similar, and they feature claws and a regenerating healing factor. Another superhero team featured prominently throughout the series are various members of Capes for Christ, which is a corrupt organization within the boys that capitalizes on religious propaganda to market their heroes. I can't really think of a great example of this outside of maybe like Crossbreed, which is from Astro City. Ezekiel is the leader of Capes for Christ, with powers similar to Mr. Fantastic or Plastic Man, in that he can stretch and contort himself in various ways, which of course he uses for purely, devious behavior. Next up, we have Supersonic, who within the show and in the comics is part of the Young Americans, but he's also mentioned he was in the Kicks at one point, as well as Capes for Christ, so he's nothing new, but, anyway, it doesn't matter, he's dead. But Supersonic is a proud Latin American supe more akin to DC's character Vibe. Supersonic has the ability to generate shock waves from a superpowered clap, very similar to Vibe's ability to generate concussive blasts by manipulating powerful vibrations from his body. Last but not least, for Capes for Christ, we have Gecko, who's most likely inspired by multiple heroes rolled into one, but specifically one villain. His reptilian name is likely inspired by Lizard, as are his powers, considering he can regrow limbs easily, much like how Dr. Kirk Connors was able to regrow his arm while in lizard form. Lastly, we want to discuss two separate members of the boys. Keep in mind that throughout most of the series, only Kimiko has powers. However, during the events of Season 3, both Huey and Butcher obtain temporary powers. But I'm only going to discuss Butcher and Kimiko, sorry. First, let's discuss Butcher. Butcher's general power set that he exhibits after taking the temporary Compound V present in Season 3 is almost the default superhero power set. Super strength, some speed improvements, and super durability. He does also gain the ability to use heat vision similar to Homelander. However, despite these powers, Butcher is entirely based around the Punisher, a character that Garth Ennis wrote for many years during the Punisher Max series from Marvel Comics. Butcher and Frank's families were both murdered, which launches them into a lifetime campaign as anti-hero vigilantes. They both have military backgrounds, considerable training, and both are extreme sadists. Butcher, much like Lex Luthor, proves that brains are just as important as bronze when you choose the most powerful beings in existence as your targets. And last, but certainly not least for this video, let's discuss the female of the species, Kimiko Miyashiro. Kimiko is directly inspired by multiple characters, chief of which are Wolverine and his genetic clone, Laura Kinney X-23. The female's family was brutally murdered in front of her, which led her to a life of selective mutism. Kimiko can talk, she just hasn't overcome the burden of that in the show, but she has spoken in the comics. Kimiko is a brutal and dangerous fighter, and her insane regeneration has made her even more ruthless as the likelihood of death is basically extremely rare. She is super strong, fast, agile, and durable, but the regenerative healing factor makes her a living weapon. Kimiko is definitely one of the most formidable supes in The Boys. And that is about it for this video. We wanted to cover the most popular supes throughout the series and who inspired them, as well as some of their fictional backstories and, the most interesting parts of them. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you disagree with any of my picks, feel free to let me know which ones you disagree with down in the comments section so we can argue endlessly all day through the magic of the internet. This has been Nick with Key Issues. Thank you so much for watching, and remember the motto, the boys over everything.